Everybody tells you a fresh egg's the best egg. Here's one I boiled that the hen laid this morning. And see how the shell tears the white all to pieces coming off? Ruins it. And here's one out of a carton that's set in the icebox 3 weeks. Boiled the same way. And the shell slips off clean as a whistle. The old egg peels better. Ma knew to save the old ones for boiling, and I'll tell you why directly. That's the kind of thing on this list. The stuff that sounds backwards and isn't, that she knew and never once wrote down. Here's the twist. Number 12 is the fat she cooked in that they spent 50 years telling you would kill you, and the honest truth is stranger than either side lets on. Number 10 is an apple pie with not one apple in it. And number 1 is the only recipe Ma ever wrote down in her whole life, and even it is wrong. Let's count down 25 more cooking tricks Ma never wrote down. Number 25, slipping the skins with boiling water. Come canning time, there'd be a bushel of tomatoes to skin, and nobody stood there peeling them with a knife, because there's a trick that takes the skin off in a second, and none of the tomato with it. You cut a little X in the bottom of each, drop them in boiling water about half a minute, no more, then straight into ice water. The skin splits at that X and slips right off whole. Works the same on peaches. What the boiling does is loosen the pectin that glues the skin to the flesh, and the cold shock keeps the tomato from cooking soft under it. Leave them in too long and you've got stewed tomatoes and a burnt hand. In and out, 30 seconds, and cold. Number 24, save the old eggs for boiling. Back to that egg from the top, because it's the one people fight me on. A fresh laid egg is a misery to peel. The shell takes half the white with it, and you're left with a cratered mess. A 2-week-old egg peels clean. It's backwards from everything you'd think, and it's true. Here's the why near as they've worked it out. A fresh egg's white is barely on the sweet side of neutral, and at that state it grips tight to the skin inside the shell. As the egg sits, it breathes out through the shell, and the white turns more alkaline, and that loosens its hold, so the shell lets go clean. It's got nothing to do with the egg being good or bad. A 3-week egg is fine to eat, it just peels better. So save your freshest for frying, where fresh matters, and boil the older ones. The old women kept them in the order they were laid, and reached to the back of the basket for the boiling eggs. Number 23, a pinch of salt in the coffee. The old people salted the coffee, just a pinch in the pot with the grounds, and it sounds wrong till you taste it, and then you understand. Coffee's bitter, and a little salt takes a hard edge off it and leaves it smooth, almost sweeter, without a grain of sugar. They tell me salt quiets the bitter part on your tongue, the way it does in anything. So a cheap, harsh coffee, or one that boiled too long on the back of the stove, a pinch of salt brings it back drinkable. Now it's a pinch, and I mean a pinch, for a whole pot. Get heavy-handed and you've got salty coffee, and no fixing it. But a little, and it's the oldest trick there is for a poor cup, and the sailors and soldiers all knew it. Number 22, fry a bite before you trust a whole batch. When they made up a mess of sausage, ground the pork, and worked in the sage and salt and red pepper by memory, they did not taste it raw, and they did not cook the whole batch in hope. They fried one little patty first. You pinch off a bite, fry it through, and taste it. Too flat, it wants more salt or sage, and you work that into the raw batch and fry another test. Only when the test bite tastes right does the rest get made into patties. It's the simplest thing in the world, and near nobody does it. And it's why store sausage tastes like every other store sausage, and hers tasted like hers. One test patty. Taste before you commit. Number 21, an egg in the coffee. Here's one that'll stop a young person cold. You put a whole egg, shell and all, right into the coffee grounds before you boil it. The church basements up north are famous for it, but it come down here too, and it makes the clearest, smoothest pot of coffee you ever drank. What the egg does is clean the coffee. As it heats, it cooks and sets, and grabs all the fine grit and the bitter and pulls it down into a clump in the bottom. So what you pour off the top is clear as tea, no grounds, no bite. It's the same trick a fancy cook uses to clear a broth with an egg white, and the bit of shell cuts the sourness besides. You crack the egg into the grounds, mash it up, shell and all, boil it, then settle it with a little cold water and pour gentle. Boil it to death though, and it goes bitter again. Bring it up, pull it off, let it settle. Number 20, fried green tomatoes. When the frost was coming, there was always a mess of tomatoes on the vine that would never get the chance to ripen. And a mountain family did not waste a green tomato. They fried it. And it's a dish worth more than the ripe one. You slice them thick, salt them, dredge them in cornmeal, and fry them in hot grease till the meal crust up gold and the tomato inside goes soft and tart. The green one's firm enough to hold its shape where a ripe one falls to mush, and it's got a sharp tang the crust sets off. The trick is the meal and the heat. Cornmeal, not flour, for a crust that holds, and grease hot enough to crisp it before the slice cooks to slop. Too cool, and it soaks up grease and slides off soggy. Hot pan, cornmeal, don't crowd them. The last green fruit of the year, and one of the best plates off that garden. Number 19, a splash of vinegar in the poaching water. Poaching an egg, dropping it naked into simmering water, will turn into a pot of white rags and feathers if you don't know the one thing. And the one thing is a splash of vinegar. A spoonful of vinegar in the water sets the white up fast the second the egg hits it, so it gathers around the yolk instead of streaming off in strings. The acid firms it quicker than plain water can. And I'll be honest, a fresh egg matters more than the vinegar. A fresh white is thick and holds itself near on its own, and no vinegar fully saves an old loose one. Fresh egg first, vinegar second. Don't dump the whole bottle in or you'll taste it and the white turns tough. A spoonful, water at a bare tremble, not a boil, and slip the egg in low. Number 18, coffee that was never coffee. There were times the coffee run out, or the money did, and a mountain family still had something hot and brown and bitter to start the day on. And I want you to know what it was, because it's a piece of hard times knowing. They roasted things and ground them. Chicory root was the famous one. Roast it dark and it makes a brew near black and near as bitter as coffee, which is why New Orleans still cuts theirs with it to this day. Dandelion root the same, and parched grain, rye or barley, roasted dark and ground and boiled. Here's the honest part they'd have wanted you to know. Not a one of these has got any caffeine in it. None. So they give you the taste and the warmth and the ritual of a cup, but not the lift. Coffee for the tongue and the habit, not the head. In a hard winter, that was still worth a great deal. That's the coffee pot and the skillet. From here down, it's the bacon and the putting by and the hearth. And one of them, number 12, is going to surprise you. If you cook it all, subscribe. I put one of these up every few days. Number 17, the hot pan that saves the pie bottom. Everybody's fruit pie comes out with a raw, soggy, pale bottom crust. The top all done and the underneath still wet dough. And there's a fix the old bakers knew that cost you nothing. You set your pie on a baking sheet or a stone that's already been heating in the oven hot. That hot metal drives heat straight up into the bottom crust and sets and browns it before the fruit juice can soak in and make it raw. Some pricked the bottom all over with a fork besides, so steam got out instead of puffing it up. The failure is a cold pie on a cold rack. The top bakes and the bottom sits there wet. Preheat the sheet, set the pie right on it, and the bottom comes out as done as the top. Number 16, making your own baking powder. Run out of baking powder in the middle of a batter, and a mountain woman didn't quit. She made her own out of two things she had, and you can too. Baking powder is nothing but an acid and a base that make gas when they get wet. You mix 2 parts cream of tartar to 1 part baking soda. The cream of tartar's the acid, the soda's the base, and the wet batter sets them fizzing and lifts your cake. Now the one thing to know, the homemade kind works the second it's wet, all at once, where the store kind gives a second lift in the oven's heat. So mix it fresh and get that batter in the hot oven quick. Don't let it stand. Used directly, it raises a biscuit as good as anything in a can. Number 15, browning the butter. Most people melt butter and stop there, and they've never tasted what butter does 2 minutes later, which is turn nutty and gold and about the best flavor in the kitchen for free. You keep melted butter on the heat, and it foams and sputters as the water cooks off. Then it quiets, and the little milk bits in the bottom brown, and the whole thing turns the color of a hazelnut and smells like toasted nuts. That's the same browning as a searing steak, the milk solids toasting. Poured over greens or fish or into a cake, it tastes like you did something you didn't. The failure is it goes from perfect to burnt in about 10 seconds once the water's gone. Use a light pan so you can see the color. Keep it moving, and the second it's nut brown, pour it out of the hot pan, or it'll scorch bitter. Number 14, Switchel, the drink that worked a hayfield. Before there was a sports drink in a bottle, there was Switchel, and it did the same job 100 years sooner. And Paul carried a jug of it to the hayfield every summer of his life. It's water, a good slug of vinegar, a sweetening, molasses or honey or maple, and a knob of ginger. That's it. You keep it cool in the spring house or the creek and drink it through a long day of haying. They called it haymaker's punch, and I'm told the vinegar and sweetened ginger put back what you sweat out and settle a stomach too hot to want water, where plain warm water made a man sick. Too much vinegar and it's a pucker nobody'll drink. Too little and it's sweet water. Mix it sharp and sweet at once to taste. Cold, it beats anything you'll buy on a hot day. Number 13, boiled icing made of nothing. There was a white icing the old cooks put on a cake, glossy and soft like a cloud, and it's got no butter in it and near no cost, just egg white and sugar and know-how. You beat egg whites and pour a hot boiled sugar syrup into them in a thin stream as you beat, or beat them over a pot of boiling water, and the heat cooks the whites as they whip into a soft marshmallow icing that holds a peak and shines. 7-minute icing, some called it. No butter, which mattered when butter was dear, and it covered a plain cake like something out of a bakery. 2 failures. 1 speck of grease or yolk, and the whites will not whip, so a clean bowl. And a damp, rainy day makes a boiled icing weep, so you make it dry. Clean bowl, dry day, hot syrup, and you've iced a cake with 3 cents of sugar and an egg. Number 12, the fat they said would kill you. Now here's the one I promised, and I'll walk it careful, because it's a fight folks are still having, and I'm no doctor. Ma cooked in lard and beef tallow, same as every generation before her, and in her lifetime the whole country got told that fat would kill you, and to use vegetable oil instead. What actually happened is stranger than either side tells you. Here's the honest bones, every piece checkable. A company made a fat out of cottonseed oil, Crisco, in 1911, and advertised hard-to-talk women out of lard and into the can. Then the doctors took up the idea that animal fat clogged hearts, and by 1980 that was the official advice. But here's the part that mattered. The way they made that oil solid, hydrogenating it, made a thing called trans fat. And trans fat is the one thing in this whole story that got proved, dead to rights, to cause heart disease. So bad the government pulled it clean out of the food by 2018. And the lard itself, is it the villain they said? That fight's not settled. The researchers are still at it, and the heart doctors still say go easy. So hear me plain, for I'll not be quoted wrong. I'm not telling you lard is a health food, and I'm not telling you to fear your oil. I'm telling you the honest history. The old fat got pushed out by advertising and advice that ran way ahead of the proof, and the factory fat they swapped in carried the one poison that got proven. Number 11, keeping the weevils out of the meal. Open an old sack of cornmeal or flour and find it walking with little bugs, weevils, and whole sacks near ruin. And the old people had ways of keeping them out, and I'll tell you which one's real and which one's just a comfort. The comfort is the bay leaf. They tucked one or two down in the flour and swore it kept the bugs off, and near everybody did it. And I'll be straight, there's mighty little proof it works. It's more habit than help, though it can't hurt. Here's what actually works. The bugs come in the meal already, as eggs you can't see, and they hatch in your bin. So a new sack of meal or flour goes in the freezer about 4 days, first thing. And that cold kills the eggs before they ever hatch. That's the real trick under the old one. The bay leaf was faith. The cold does the work. Number 10, an apple pie with no apples. Here's the one from the top, and it is a marvel of making do. A pie that tastes like apple pie, cinnamon and tart and all, with not one apple anywhere in it. It's crackers. You break plain crackers into the shell. Make a syrup of sugar and water with a good spoon of cream of tartar or a squeeze of lemon. Pour it over, dust it with cinnamon, and bake. The crackers go soft and take on the look and bite of cooked apple, and the cream of tartar gives the exact tart of one, and blindfolded you'd swear it was real. Poor folks made it when the apples were gone. Now folks will tell you the cracker company invented this to sell crackers, and that's not so. People were making it out of soda crackers 80 years before that famous cracker existed. It's older and humbler than the story, and it fooled everybody. Number 9, reading the candy in a cup of cold water. Making candy, fudge or taffy or brittle, is all about how hot the sugar got, because that's what makes it soft or hard. And with no thermometer, the old cooks read it by dropping a bit in cold water, and it never failed them. You spoon a little of the boiling syrup into cold water and feel what it does. Rolls into a soft ball you can squish, that's soft ball, your fudge. A firmer ball, caramels. Threads that bend but crack a little, soft crack, your taffy. Threads that snap hard and brittle, hard crack, your brittle and your suckers. Each stage is just the sugar cooked hotter and drier than the last. The failure is guessing, or going one stage too far, because sugar climbs fast at the end. So you keep a cup of cold water by the pot and test again, and pull it the second it's the ball or thread you want. Number 8, fried apple pies. The dried apples I told you the old people put up came back to life all winter as the finest hand pie there ever was, the fried apple pie. A little half moon you could hold in your hand and eat walking. You stew your dried apples soft with sugar and cinnamon till thick. Roll out a little round of dough, put a spoon of apple on one half, fold it into a half moon, crimp the edge with a fork, and fry it in a little grease till it's golden blistered both sides. Some baked them, but fried is the mountain way. In North Carolina they call them apple jacks. The dried apple's the secret, and the reason it was a winter food, it kept all year in a sack, and stewed back soft it made a filling deeper than fresh. Too much filling or a loose crimp and it burst in the grease. A spoonful, sealed tight, don't crowd the pan. Number 7, ash cake and hoe cake, bread from the bare fire. Before there was an oven, and many a cabin never had one, a mountain family baked their cornbread right on the open fire. And there were 2 ways, and they fed people for 200 years. The ash cake was the plainer, a stiff cornmeal dough patted into a cake and laid right in the hot ashes and coals to bake, sometimes wrapped in a cabbage leaf to keep the ash off. Raked out and dusted clean, it baked through good. The hoe cake was cooked on something flat and hot over the fire, a flat iron or a griddle, and the old story says a hoe blade, though the honest truth is, hoe likely meant a kind of flat pan, not a garden hoe. The whole skill is the fire, coals, not flame, and knowing by the smell and color when it's done, because you can't see into an ash heap. It's the oldest bread in these mountains, made of nothing but meal and water and salt and a fire. Number 6, pounding the tough meat tender. Not every family had the money cuts, and a poor cut of meat is tough because it's all muscle and gristle. And the old way to fix that, before there was a thing you buy, was to beat it. You pound it, a mallet, the edge of a heavy plate, the back of a knife, all over, both sides. That breaks up and shortens the long, tough muscle fibers and smashes the gristle that binds them. So the bite gives easy where it used to fight you, and it flattens thin so it cooks quick. That's your cube steak, your country fried steak. It don't change what the meat is, it just breaks it down so your teeth don't have to. A tough round steak, beat good and floured and fried in a hot pan with gravy off the grippings, ate as good as anything and cost a quarter of it. Number 5, the pie safe. Before the refrigerator, there was a piece of furniture in near every mountain kitchen that people have plumb forgot, and it solved a real problem. How do you keep a pie and a loaf of bread out where you can get to them, but away from the flies and the mice? The pie safe. It's a wooden cupboard whose doors and sides are panels of tin, punched full of little holes in a pattern, a star, an eagle. Those holes are the whole point. They let air move so the bread don't sweat and mold, but they're too small for a fly or a mouse. So your pies and cornbread and biscuits kept a few days, safe and breathing, right there in the kitchen. They're a prized antique now, and folks buy 'em for the pretty punched tin, and never know it was pierced for a reason, to keep the family's food, before the machine that hums in your kitchen did it for you. Number 4, baking in a Dutch oven with the coals on top. You can bake a loaf of bread or a cobbler as good as any oven with nothing but a cast iron pot and a fire. And the whole secret is one thing most people miss. You put the coals on the lid. The heavy pot with the flat-rimmed lid is made for it. You set it over a bed of coals, and then, this is the part, you shovel hot coals up onto the lid, so the heat comes down from the top too. Now it's an oven, not a pot. It bakes all the way around instead of scorching the bottom and steaming the rest. For bread, you want more coals up top than under, about 3 on the lid to 1 below, so the bottom don't burn before the top browns. The failure is all your heat underneath, a black bottom and a raw top. Coals top and bottom, more on top for baking, and you'll turn out a cobbler at a hunting camp that'll shame a kitchen. Number 3, seasoning the skillet and saving a rusty one. A cast iron skillet is a 100-year pan. It outlives everybody, and there's a mystery to it people get wrong, and a rusty one that folks throw away that's not near ruined. That black slick surface, the seasoning, is not grease and it's not dirt. It's oil cooked so hot it changed into a hard finish bonded right into the iron, near like a plastic, and that's what makes it slick and keeps it from rusting. Build it up thin coat by thin coat, oil white near dry and baked hot past its smoking, and it only gets better with the years. And here's the part worth money. A pan gone orange with rust is not dead. Never throw one out. You scour it back to the bare gray metal, even a vinegar soak for a bad one, and season it fresh from scratch, and it's good as new. Ma's skillet came to her from her mother, and it's cooked 100 years of cornbread, and it'll cook 100 more. There is no throwing away a cast iron pan. There is only bringing it back. Number 2, a cook tastes everything. The plainest thing Ma did, and the thing that separated a real cook from somebody following a card, was this. She tasted everything, all the way through. She tasted the pot of beans in the morning, and again at noon, and again before it went on the table, off the back of the same spoon. And each time she'd know, needs salt, needs to cook down, wants a little more fat back, and she'd fix it right then. She never trusted a thing to come out right just because it went in right. Cooking to her wasn't following a recipe to the end and hoping. It was a running conversation with the pot. Taste and fix, till it was right. That's the thing a recipe card can't give you, and it's a difference in every kitchen. The card tells you what to put in. It cannot taste the pot for you and tell you what it needs now, today, this batch. Only a cook standing there with a spoon can do that. Taste everything, the whole way through, and fix as you go. Number 1, the one recipe she ever wrote down. I told you at the start Ma never wrote her cooking down, and that's near true. And it's the whole reason for this channel. But there was one recipe in her hand on a card gone soft and brown with grease and years, and I have it yet in a drawer. And it's the most precious thing I own out of that kitchen. It's her stack cake. Somebody must have begged her for it, and she sat down that once and wrote it out. And here's the thing that tells you everything about why we do this. That card can't be followed. It says flour to make a soft dough, and bake till it's done, and sweeten to your liking. It leaves out every number that mattered, because she didn't have numbers. She had hands, and hands don't write down. The one time she wrote it, she still couldn't get the most of it onto the paper, because the most of it was never in words to begin with. And that's exactly the thing that dies up and down these mountains every time one of them goes. Not the recipe. We can get a recipe. The hands. The 60 years at the stove that told her when the dough was soft enough and the cake was done. She could no more write that down than she could hand you her own 2 hands. So all any of us can do is get down what can be got down, honest and complete as we can, and say plainly where the words run out and the hands took over. That card is why. She knew, and it near all went with her, and I don't want that to keep happening. One thing before I go, and I'll only say it to once. Everything I know, everything on this channel, I'm putting in a book, sourced the way we do it here, every claim with where it comes from, so it's written down and checkable before the last of us takes it into the ground. If you want it, it's at EzraCade.com. That's the only time you'll hear me say it. They knew. Now it's written down. Here's my challenge. Pick one and go do it this week, and taste as you go. Drop a green tomato in cornmeal and fry it. Salt your coffee, just a pinch. Or take a rusty skillet somebody gave up on and scary it back and season it and put it to work. Then tell me in the comments, and I want the specific thing. What did your grandmother make that never got written down right? The dish, the trick, the thing she did by feel that no card could hold. Whose was it, and what county did she cook in? I'm trying to get it down before it's gone, because that's the whole reason for this. It lived in one woman's hands at a time, and it went in the ground with her, over and over, all up and down these mountains, and most of it is gone. But not all of it, not the part we write down. They knew. Now it's written down.